Hello and welcome to another edition of the Plus One interview. And today we have a special guest, sports writer for the Lowell Sun, Mr. Matt Langone. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right, Matt. This is this is the wildest years of sports. I don't think in my lifetime I've seen so much sports being played all at once before. Usually we get a break from something, but we had I think all major sports were playing the past 2 months.
Right.
Yeah, so this is crazy. Now the Celtics season ended again in the Eastern Conference Finals, third time in 4 years. First of all, just overall, what was your overall thought of the overall performance of this team throughout the season?
I think if you went back and checked, what people thought was going to happen back last October before the season started, I think if you had told them that they were going to get to the Eastern Conference, if you told fans that the Celtics were going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, be 2 wins away from the NBA Finals, I think people would have taken that. You didn't know what you were really going to get. It was a new nucleus. Kyrie was out the door. Al Horford was out the door. Kemba came in. It was just a new – and Jason Tatum was going to be asked to take that next step to be the guy on the team. And I think – all things considered, it was a successful season for the Celtics. I know there's a lot of doom and gloom on social media on Sunday night after they lost and, people talking about a missed opportunity, and that's definitely real. I mean, that was definitely a missed opportunity. I think it was right there for them. I do think that they were the more talented team than the Heat. I think it was just a golden opportunity for them. But if we're being real, the Heat just out-toughed them. Eric Spoelstra out-coached Brad Stevens. They didn't get rattled. The Celtics did get rattled. And, they forgot how to beat a 2-3 zone, which is unacceptable for an NBA team. So I think, it's complicated because, yes, it was a missed opportunity. Yes, I think they should still be playing. There was no home court advantage for anyone. There was no travel involved. It was all just right there in the bubble for them. Mm-hmm. But I think there's still a lot to be happy about if you're a Celtics fan. I think they have enough in that locker room to be a championship contender. I don't think they need to go do drastic things and blow the whole thing up like people are saying. So I think we have to gather our thoughts, get back to rational thought here, and remember that this is still a really good, really young, talented basketball team.
This is Boston. Boston fans
That's right.
are very rational, especially after a loss. I look at it as – it was disappointing for them not to get to the final. I think last year was more of a missed opportunity than this year because if you look at last year, the best team in the league the past 3 years, they were wounded. The guys were falling. Right. And what the Raptors did, the Raptors took full advantage of that. They took full advantage and got themselves a championship. Now, last year's team probably was more talented than this year's team, and they had a chance to sneak a championship in, and they didn't take full advantage of that. This year's team, we just saw the immaturity of the young players, especially down the stretch with the late game execution. If you look at it, all the games they had a lead at some point in the fourth quarter, and it just came down to late game execution. Right,
and I think you can chalk some of that up to the fact that your best players are 22 and 23 years old. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I mean, those are your guys. I mean, Kemba Walker is a great player in his own right as well. But I think even Kemba would acknowledge that this is probably going to be Jason Tatum's team going forward. I think we all know that Tatum is the franchise guy here. Kemba's a great, top 2 or 3 option on a team. But, I mean, when your best players are that young, there's going to be some hiccups. But maybe the alarming thing is the Heat have 2 young players, Tyler Herro and Bam Adebayo, and those guys made all the key plays that they need to make. I mean, they didn't get rattled. So for whatever reason, Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro were ready for this moment. And Tatum and Brown weren't so much. Although Jaylen Brown, I thought, was very good in the series. I thought he was actually the best player on the team.
The most consistent one. He was the most consistent one out of the entire group because Tatum, he just had these moments. I think it was 3 straight games. He started off 0 for, 13, 14, 15 in the first quarter. Right. He has these slow starts in games, which is baffling if you want to take that next leap, if you want to become a superstar player. You can't have early mishaps like that in big games, especially in the conference championship.
No, I mean, there's already conversation about him being, a top 10 player in the NBA, but you can't, like you said, you can't have these stretches where you go like 0 for 7 to start in an Eastern Conference Finals game, 3 times in a row. If you're a top 10 player, you got to command that game right off the bat. I mean, You don't see LeBron James or Anthony Davis or any of those guys doing that. They're seizing the moment right away, and they're getting theirs early on, and they're doing it the whole game long. So that is one thing I think that, that's going to be part of Tatum's development. He's going to get better at that, obviously. I mean, he's a great player. He's extremely talented. I think his court vision got a lot better this year. I think he's seeing the floor better. He's passing better. He's rebounding better. So he's filling the stat sheet better, which is something he didn't really do last year. Last year he was more of a scorer. Now he's become more of a complete player. But now he needs to take that next step where he needs to be the dominant player on the court from the first minute to the last minute. And I think that will come. And that's one of the reasons I think there's still a lot to be optimistic about for Celtics fans. I mean, the guy's 22 years old. Let's give him some time. Let's allow him to have a hiccup in his third NBA season and hope he learns from it.
Yeah, I think one thing with the team, the way it's constructed, you can see they need a couple of veteran presence or just a couple guys off the bench that could come in and do something, because the rotation was very short and the guys they had coming off the bench were young guys. I mean, Cantor, he with the opportunities he got, he seized it. But what for me, what the Celtics need is they need a couple knockdown shooters and a couple big men that could just come in there, just rebound the ball, because defensive, especially protecting the paint, that was a big issue. I mean, Bam got to the paint and did whatever he wanted. And the frustrating part about the Celtics, they kept jacking up threes to start each game. When the team overall,
agree. I think they've needed they've needed a knockdown shooter for years now, and they haven't found one. And if you're going to take 48 3-pointers in an Eastern Conference Finals game, you better have dudes who can knock them down. And they don't have that knockdown shooter. I mean, the guys they have are streaky. Kemba's streaky. Jason Tatum's streaky. They're scorers, but they're not necessarily shooters. They're not like a J.J. Redick or a Klay Thompson or somebody like that who's just going to knock shots down left and right. They don't need somebody that good, but they need to go out and find somebody who, if he's open, he's going to knock that down. And he's going to command attention, which will open up the lanes and for Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Smart and Kemba. They definitely need that, and they definitely need a big guy who can defend the pick and roll. Because that's the one thing about Enes Kanter is, as good of a rebounder he is and as good of a scorer he is inside, he gets exposed on the pick and roll. And you're right, Bam was just killing them. And Bam Adebayo was the difference in the series. I mean, he did everything. I mean, he can defend, he protects the rim, he passes, he rebounds, he scores, he's a good free throw shooter. I mean, he is the ideal big man in the modern NBA right now. That's who you want. You want to try to find a Bam Adebayo. It's most likely the Celtics aren't going to find a guy that good, but they're going to find an athletic big man who can defend the pick and roll.
I hear Miles Turner one side of Indiana. So.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. I heard a rumor, there's rumors going around about a Hayward for a deal that sends Hayward to Indiana and maybe Marcus Smart for Turner, but I don't know, man. I'm not as ready to give up on Marcus Smart as some people are. I think he does so many things for the team that you're not going to find anybody else. Yeah, he'll give you a headache sometimes for the 3-point shooting and the forced offense, but he does so many intangible things that I think he's so valuable.
He's the ultimate team player. He's the ultimate role player.
For sure.
His role every year always changes. He'll be in the starting lineup. He'll come off the bench. He's just the ultimate team player, the ultimate role player. Also, Hayward, I think he has a player option coming up this off season, and now there's talks of maybe trading him. His inability to stay on the court has been an issue. I mean, what do you think is going to happen there?
Well, I think he's definitely going to pick up his option because there's not another team that's going to give him $30 million. So he's not going to go into free agency. So he'll pick the option up. And then if you're going to trade him, you're going to find somebody who's willing to take on that contract on a 1-year rental. There might be somebody out there. But the thing is, Hayward had a great regular season. He finally, when he was on the court, he was, 17 points, 6 rebounds, close to 5 assists. He was efficient. I think he shot 50% from the floor. When he's on the court and he's healthy, he's really good. He does a lot of things that the Celtics need. He can against the 2-3 zone, he'll get into the lane. He'll play make. I think he's the second best passer on the team outside of Marcus Smart. Mm-hmm. The problem is, like you said, staying on the court. I mean, he's just always hurt. It's always something happening to him. And it's not his fault. He's just got one of those cursed NBA careers where it just seems like it's another injury after another injury, and he just can't get a flow. So that's really the most frustrating part about Gordon Hayward. I think he does a lot of nice things. He looked terrible in Game 6. I mean, he missed that layup that was, as easy as they come. He was getting beat on defense. I don't think his mind was there. I mean, you got to remember, He also had a child born back home that he didn't get to witness. He wasn't there for that. So that's, if you miss the birth of your child, that's weighing on you too. You probably wish you could have been home. He wasn't 100% healthy. So you hope that he comes back healthy next year and stays healthy, which is a big if with him. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, Brad Stevens has a great relationship with him too, going back to college. So I don't know how willing they'll be to trade him and if they can find a trade partner. But I would say if there's a team willing to take him on and you can get a good package in return, I mean, I think you obviously have to take a hard look at that.
Yeah, and as far for Brad Stevens, I mean, what you as a fan, what do you think? What do you think adjustments he needs to make as a coach? Because he's gotten a lot of criticism as coaching of being outcoached, not only in this round but also by Nick Nurse in the second round. So what adjustments you think he needs to make as a coach? Because he's already proven he's a good NBA coach. He's just right now he's entering that Tony Dungy realm where
right. That's a good
Bucks, or Andy Reid with the Eagles when they couldn't get over that hump. They're almost there. What do you think he needs to do as a coach to get over that hump?
Yeah, those are good comparisons. Kind of like Jerry Sloan used to be back in the day with the Jazz too. He'd always get close, but he could never get over the hump. But he had to deal with Michael Jordan. With Brad Stevens, he's definitely an elite coach. I mean, I think he's top 5 or 6 coach in the league. Nick Nurse is really good. Spoelstra might be the best right now. So he ran into maybe the best coach in the league. I think Spoelstra is kind of taking the torch from Greg Popovich right now. He's just really, really good. But in terms of adjustments, I think he just has to he doesn't seem to be able to adjust on the fly as much. In a series where things are coming at you fast, especially in the bubble where they were playing every other day and you didn't have a lot of time to make things on the fly. You really had to think quickly. And I don't think he was so much able to do that. I do think a lot of it, though, was the players panicking in the moment, which you can't really pin on Brad Stevens. I think he told them as much as he could to attack the zone, attack, don't settle. And at a certain point, that becomes the player's responsibility. And I don't think they were living up to it. I think they were forgetting. I think they were panicking. I mean, you go watch like a middle school basketball game. That's what you expect. You expect the middle schoolers to be confused by a zone. You don't expect NBA guys who've been playing for, 16 years or however long they've 17, 18, 20 years to be confused by that. So I do put a lot of that on the players. I think Stevens told them as much as he could. They need to figure out different ways to attack it. I think he tried to make meaningful substitutions. I think when he put Grant Williams into the game in Game 6, that was a great move. But then he took him out again, and that was a bad move. He should have rode with him as long as he could, maybe left him in for the rest of the fourth quarter because he was playing some great defense and making an impact. Yeah. So I think that's another thing, too. He just has to learn to not maybe ride with guys that he's used to riding with and make adjustments on the fly and be like, okay, I like Gordon Hayward, but in this game, he's just not right for this game. So I need to keep him on the bench. And he just needs to be willing to do that and, maybe be the bad guy with some of the players sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And got a few more minutes. A guy I'm really interested in his third season, next season, is Robert Williams, because for all we say about this guy, whenever he's on the court, good things happen.
I know.
Every time he gets on the court, good things happen. I don't know if it's the maturity or, his IQ of the game that causes him to not get as much minutes. But I think if he can make a leap and just get a little more mature, he could crack that starting lineup next season. And he's athletic and he can do a lot of things on the defensive side that could help this team.
You're right. I mean, he's everything they want to find. He's an athletic big man who can protect the rim. And you're right. Even when he's not blocking shots, he's altering shots. He's getting up there. I mean, his vertical is so big and he's so athletic that he's altering shots. And he gives them something they don't have. They don't have a guy like that. I mean, Enes Kanter can't do that. Daniel Tice is really good at what he does. He's carved out a great role. He's been better for this team than I would have ever imagined him. But even Daniel Tice doesn't give you the same things that Robert Williams could give you. And I think you're right. I think it's a little bit of a trust factor. I don't know that they trust him completely in big games yet. I mean, he's still young. He's still got a lot, he's still one of those guys with potential that he hasn't really reached yet. But you got to give him those opportunities at some point. And I think next year might be the time because that's what they saw. I mean, they saw Bam Adebayo crush them. And right now on their current roster, the only guy who can even maybe match up with them or maybe slow him down is Robert Williams. I mean, that's the only option they have. So they're going to have to try to develop him even more. But you're right. I mean, every time he's on the court, he's doing something right. He's getting rebounds. He's getting second chance opportunities. I think he took a big leap this year. And it just has to be a trust thing right now. They probably just don't fully trust him yet.
Mm-hmm. All right. Lastly, before we get out of here, just quickly, the New England Patriots, 2-1 right now so far. What's your assessment of the team and how they've been playing?
Well, if anyone's been paying attention to my Twitter or reading me, I love Cam Newton. I love this move from the minute they did it. I wanted it. As soon as I knew Brady was out of town, I wanted them to go get Cam Newton because, you're talking about a 30-year-old former MVP who's motivated and has a lot left in the tank. And, one thing about Cam Newton is he's never had great weapons. He took the Carolina Panthers team to the Super Bowl with Ted Ginn as a receiver, and, he had a good tight end in Greg Olsen. He had a couple decent running backs, but this is a guy that can put you put a team on his back. And I think he's still capable of doing that. And I think they're in good shape. I think the division is a little improved. Buffalo's good, obviously. I mean, they're off to a great start, but the Jets and the Dolphins are terrible. So there's 4 wins right there against those teams. And this will be a big test this week against the Chiefs, going to Kansas City and going against Mahomes, because I think the Patriots defense is still a little bit leaky. I think there's, they got to solve some questions. They had a little bit of a meltdown at the end of the second half last week, at the end of the first half last week against the Raiders, where they gave up that touchdown. But I mean, I like what I've seen from the Patriots right now. I think Cam is saying all the right things. I think he wants to be there. He wants to, adapt to the Patriot way. And I think right now it's as good as anybody could have ever imagined. And we'll see what happens this weekend. But I expect a competitive game. I don't think they're going to go down to Kansas City and get crushed. I think they're a 10 or 11 team at least, and you get into the playoffs, and then you take your chances. But I think they're better than people think they are.
And I think they have the recipe to neutralize Kansas City. That running attack, that's the best way to keep that Kansas City offense out.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, Matt, please tell everybody if they want to read your stuff, if they want to follow you, plug in your social media and all that good stuff.
Yeah, social media on Twitter, it's at Matt Langone, just my name. And you want to read me, it's www.lowellsun.com. That's our website. I also do some stuff for the Boston Herald as well. That's in our family newspapers as well, so you can read me there, a lot of my Celtics coverage. So definitely check it out, and I appreciate the time. Love talking this stuff.
No problem. All right, everyone, that's Matt Langone of the Lowell Sun. You guys been watching the Plus One interview. Have a great day.